What happens when those we trust to enforce the law cross the line themselves? How much grace should they be given? And where do we draw the line between accountability and compassion? In this episode, we dive into these challenging questions and discover their surprising connection to the real St. Nicholas, the teachings of Jesus, and the enduring magic of Christmas. Prepare for a thought-provoking discussion that blends justice, grace, and the true spirit of the holiday season. This is Downright Mindful. Let's begin. Man, that's downright mindful.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I don't need backups. I'm going to Harvard.
Remember these words. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Do or do not. There is no try.
I still have a dream.
Welcome to Downright Mindful, a meeting place where we explore meaning, seek connections, and examine the relationships between people, events, and the ideas that shape our world. Hosted by me, Matt Paris, my friend and colleague Paul Sawswell, each episode will dive into thoughtful conversations that spark reflection and curiosity. Thanks for joining us. Now let's get right down to it.
How much grace can I give to a police officer when they speed as a regular citizen? Yeah, I just went a totally different direction.
Yeah, sure.
How about when they're texting on their phone and they're driving?
Mm-hmm.
How about when they change lanes and they don't even put on their blinker? How much grace are we supposed to give as citizens? Now, I have roots in this. I have lived in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Do you know anything about Jacksonville, North Carolina?
Not a thing.
There are two totally different universes that exist in this small coastal North Carolina town. This is Camp Lejeune. This is the biggest Marine base in the world. At least that's what I've been told since the day that I got there, Christmas 1994.
Yeah.
70,000 military there. 70,000, man. 70,000 civilians. So we're living this civilian life. My dad did financial planning for the military, but the military who live on base and in barracks and live this life and eat in that mess hall and then come into our bubble of Jacksonville, you know, there's this different life, but they smash into each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Humor me. Like, are cops supposed to be speeding? Are they supposed to be texting while driving? Shoot, I've even seen them on their laptops while driving. That's still a thing?
Are you asking if it's against the law?
Yes.
No.
The letter of the law, why does it not apply to them?
The letter of the law when it comes to texting and driving doesn't apply to police officers
Why?
on duty, period.
I feel like that's dangerous. Do they have a skill set that we don't have?
That's right.
They do? Do
Yeah.
they practice texting while driving?
No, but the reason it's written...
And I'm being semi-sincere.
Yeah, the reason it's written that way is because it's very often, daily, that police officer is driving down the road and he's reading an update on the call that he's going to. Now, there's some old heads, and maybe me included, because I could land on both sides of this fence, that are part of something called, less than 100 or something like that. And what it is over 100 police officers are killed every year in traffic accidents. So
That they cause?
no, just traffic accidents. Period.
Okay, got you.
And what this campaign does is they say, hey, if we want to save police officers, let's start with that number. Let's encourage officers to wear their seatbelt, because that's the thing. Officers that'll, from the old school that say, I need to be out of my car fast. Well, if you're not alive, you're not going to help anybody. So let's put that seatbelt on.
So officers do not have to wear their seatbelt.
No, that's not true. No, that's not true.
Is it the law?
It is the law that you wear your seatbelt. Yeah.
Do it.
If you want to attack something that doesn't apply to a police officer, start there. Seatbelts.
So it does apply to it.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm not on the attack. Easy.
No, I know.
I'm a curious mind.
The reason I steer you in that direction is because
it's interesting.
The texting and driving and this and that.
Yeah.
I don't know about in North Carolina, but I know in Tennessee law, it is written to exclude police officers.
Oh, this has nothing to do with North Carolina. My whole life is here in Bradley
yeah.
County, Tennessee, quarter of a century.
And speeding, it's Tennessee 558108. If you're going to speed, it needs to be in pursuit to protect life or property, and it will not be done without audible and visual signals, and you will exercise due regard. So if you operate outside of those lines and you cause somebody to get hurt, you're liable, and you may end up in jail.
Could a state trooper pull over a local police officer for speeding? Has it ever happened? I'm
sure. Yeah, I could show you video right now of, this is not in Tennessee, but I use it in my class.
A marked car, not an unmarked car.
Absolutely. A marked cruiser. I can show you video on the internet right now. I think it's in Florida. And they had been seeing this for a while, I think.
Yeah.
This marked car from another jurisdiction coming through down the interstate at like 100 miles an hour. And finally, this lady trooper had enough. Now, I don't think she was one of the people that had been seeing it because her reaction is very like, she's keyed up, man. She thinks like somebody's stolen a police car because when she gets behind it with lights, it doesn't yield at all. It just keeps going, speeding up even. But when she finally gets it stopped, it is a uniformed officer, and he says he's on his way to an off-duty assignment. He's working security at some party or something or whatever, and that he was running late. And she is like you can hear the stress relief coming through her, but she's still and she's like, I thought somebody stolen this car. Like she's gun drawn, she's everything because he hadn't stopped. So yeah, I can. I've never seen it firsthand, but I can.
In the end, according to the letter of the law, just humor me. There's a theme going here.
Sure, yeah.
Can he get a ticket?
Absolutely.
Did she give him a ticket?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
At one point, he's in handcuffs. But I don't know how it ends up. The way I use that video is I introduce it to students, and it's a conversation on ethics. And that came up in the police academy a lot. Why do I need to write into the policy and procedures of the sheriff's office that you will wear your seatbelt? It's the law that you wear your seatbelt. So it's just conversations. But it should apply where it's applicable. It should apply. Now the texting and driving rule, man, your police officers, you want them to be loose to communicate. Okay. Now I'm not talking about a police officer driving down the road playing Candy Crush while he's, cruising around the neighborhood. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ability for an officer to be able to see updates coming through on his computer, because he can hear certain things over the radio, but it's often that if he's in response to an emergency situation, there's updates that are hitting he can see those live. You know what I'm saying? He can see the input that's being put in by the call taker on that MDT on his laptop. And yes, as a rule, it is dangerous. It increases, the danger of that. But, we could dig that up into studies of police officer times reactions versus normal people's reaction, because they are different. The police officers, their perception of an obstacle on the road all the way to their foot pressing the brake is a little quicker than your average bear, because that's what they're doing all day, every day. You can't practice something without getting better at it, but it doesn't make them immune to being dangerous. And I'd say that is abused quite often.
Because there is just this sacred truth of the spirit of the law compared to the letter of the law. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's in the ancient scriptures. So we do know Santa is real, right? 100%?
Sure.
Yeah. What do you know about that guy?
Santa Claus?
Yeah.
He's checking over his list about this time of year and finishing up, double checking the work of his helpers and getting ready to make a big trip here a couple days.
Literal Santa. Santa?
Oh, St. Nicholas?
We know about that guy.
Not a lot. He
Nothing?
used to bring, let's see, I couldn't even put a time frame on it, but this is someone who, he's associated with some gifting, isn't he? Did he bring some gifts and make some people's lives better around him?
Sure. Do you know?
I don't.
Give me everything you know.
No, that's about the extent of it.
About a literal Santa.
That's about the extent of it.
4th century.
I'm all ears.
Okay. A Turkish monk. So, can you do geography as biography? Like if you know where something is, then you have a better understanding of what in the world's going on. Turkey, right?
Yeah, sure.
You got it. So he's a monk who will eventually become a saint. You know, there's a process to becoming a saint in the Catholic Church. You know what you have to do? Do you at least know one requirement? You have to perform some sort of miracle.
Huh.
Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah. Verified miracle in order to become a saint. And
still working on that.
Well, of course you are. That's why you're not a saint yet, but keep working, keep practicing. My man, there's a tale that there's a really dark tale. So I'll tell the easy part of it. These 3 youths are dead and he's able to resurrect them. Now there's a whole story of an innkeeper killing these fellows, putting them in a pickle barrel. You know, I don't have enough. I couldn't verify those stories, but they kept popping up.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, death, Saint Nick, resurrection. These kids come alive. So Nicholas, this monk, okay, becomes a saint.
Yeah.
And he's the saint of children, you know. So if you're a child, you pray to Saint Nick, right? Now, as a monk, the story goes is that he would secretly give gifts to children and even to the poor. So it's not just a kid thing, but this is who he is. And there's this whole shroud.
Yeah.
How in the world does that get from Turkey to here, these United States of America? Any idea?
Not any.
Because like the Puritans are not going to celebrate this because this is heathen stuff. But the Dutch bring this whole idea of Saint Nick and Santa Claus over to New Amsterdam. Do you know what today's New Amsterdam is? You know what that becomes in the New World?
It's in New England, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it New York?
Yeah, it's New York City.
Okay.
So New Amsterdam, New York City. So imagine the Dutch coming over and here we are. Now is New York City New England? Is it?
I don't know.
Paused.
There's part of me that just wants to chop off that whole northeastern section and call it New England, but
there are some people, if we let that stand, would want to chop us in the head for saying that New York is part of New England.
Yeah,
because that Boston,
we're just talking Boston, Massachusetts, Rhode Island.
Because that rivalry of like Red Sox and Yankees, or even the Patriots.
I need to retract.
I just wanted to make sure that people understood.
So Maine is not New England.
No, it is.
It is.
But I don't think New York City would be. Just like Philadelphia would be. The further south we get going, we have to go to Boston and go anything north.
Oh, I got you. Yeah,
Vermont, right?
Right,
Connecticut, Rhode Island. Okay. Just make sure we're clarifying that for other people.
Sorry to anybody I offended.
Yeah. So the Dutch bring him over, but our whole idea of this image that we still have of Saint Nick, do you know where that came from?
The image of him?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. So there's a cartoonist by the name of Thomas Nast. And during the Civil War, you know, he would sketch things up and he'd send them out to the papers and, you know, we get published and everything. And for 30 years, he worked on this idea of a Santa Claus. Now, he's also the elephant and the donkey guy.
Really?
Yeah. So Democrats, Republicans, Thomas Nast, he's like the father of the American political cartoon. But he's also crafting Santa.
So this is completely an American image.
This is from a German immigrant who is certainly an American cartoonist, and these are American papers. But yeah, at some point he's like this skinny kind of elf kind of figure, and then now he's like this big jolly guy, right?
Yeah. No, isn't it in Germany where they have a big scary guy?
Yeah. Like you can hang out in Europe and get all kinds of different stories.
Okay.
So we're going from Turkey and we're going north into Europe, and like everybody's kind of claiming, you know, England will claim Father Christmas, right? So there's all this stuff. And that's what's fun about new movies that always come out and like this other display of what Santa could have been, could be, is today.
Yeah.
But like this whole idea of like a literal Santa Claus, like literally this person who dedicated their life to like taking care of kids who ain't got much and taking care of the poor who just need something, spreading this cheer. So there's a spirit to this as well, right? This whole idea of Santa Claus. Now, did y'all do Santa growing up? And did you do Santa with Kyler?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Both.
Why?
Just the way it was.
Any hesitation?
No.
Any reflection of going, did I lie to my kid?
I mean, yeah, I'm sure.
No, I'm asking. You and Valerie ever have like whispered conversations of like,
no,
how's this going to go down?
Because it's just one of them things. By the time you thought about it, that's just the way it is.
Should we put somewhere in the notes that there might be some spoilers in here? Do I need to? I mean,
are you going to make spoilers in here?
Oh, because there is a spirit to something, and there's the letter of the law. There is literal things. Hey, let's talk about literal things just for a second. Where are we in time? Like time hasn't existed to this point, but I'm about to ask.
We're at 57 and a half.
Yeah, because if we keep going, this will be the longest episode we have ever created in our whole entire life.
It's Christmas, man.
Okay.
I will say Kyler Paris was the hardest kid I've ever lied to in my life from the word go.
He didn't believe it?
Absolutely. I mean, when he would see his Christmas presents, he would shoot side eyes at me. I'm talking at 3-4 years old. And he literally looks at me one time. I bought him Santa Claus brought him
there you
go. Like a big wheel, not a big wheel, like those trucks with the batteries that kids can get in and drive around.
Sure.
He brought him one of those. So he was that small.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he says, "You bought this."
Wow. The Seth is the exact opposite. We had tears and we had like Jesus conversations and like faith. I mean, like this is how this kid is wired.
Yeah.
Like he wants to believe.
Yeah.
He wants to have confidence. That confidence gets shaken or shattered. We're going to have some rebuilding to do.
Yeah.
My son is deconstructing early and reconstructing. I mean, like for real. So, I mean, where I camped out when you said, hey, let's do something here. I love sharing with people like, man, St. Nicholas, this is a thing.
Yeah.
And still a thing 1700 years later, because there is this spirit that lives on. And you get to choose to adopt it or not. You know, and like I said, or, you know, the Puritans that came over like that, we're not doing that. You know, we're not bringing that. Oh, wait a minute. You wouldn't bring that spirit of giving and that spirit of like exchange and that spirit of beauty and of season and of understanding. Or if we just have to return, if we have to, go with me, I don't know how that just came out, of this is all about Jesus, then I would land on, hey, remember that he's a monk, remember that he's a saint, and remember that, how in the world did we get to December 25th? Am I about to go there?
I'm open because I'm aware that December 25th is not, I mean, it's significant to us now.
Yeah.
But for why is it significant?
What do you know about Thor?
You talking about the guy that left his life of superherodom to become a pot-bellied drunk? That guy?
Yes, Marvel movie Thor. What do you know about Thor's brother?
What's his name?
Yeah, I'm asking.
I know it. I just can't spit it out.
That's Loki.
Loki, yeah. He got slapped around by the Hulk. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was also this pretty good, they gave him a few episodes on Disney Plus. Never watched any Loki? Okay.
No.
Who's Loki's dad?
I don't know.
And now you got to forget Marvel here just for a second. And let's you do realize that Thursday is named after Thor.
Mm-hmm.
And Friday is after his mama. And Wednesday is after his daddy. And that Thor and Loki, I mean, like they're half brothers here, right? Or some, they're family.
Yeah.
But like Wednesday is all about Woden. So somehow this culture got so embedded into they ended up on the calendar. That has to be significant in some sort of way.
Yeah.
Well, there's stories that go even back to Odin. He's also known as Woden. This is Loki's dad. Let's celebrate him. Now, that's going to be a pagan holiday. And the Catholic Church comes along and was like, hey, you know, we need to we need to make sure that what we're celebrating actually connects. So what other holiday actually goes on during Christmas time? Christmas time being a Christian holiday. What else is going on?
You referring to like the Jewish holiday, Hanukkah?
Yeah. Like, how much of this do we actually go into? I don't know. Not necessarily where I was going to go with this, but it's like, I'm in now a season of my life where for every Christian tradition that I love, let me go ahead and set it right there.
Yeah.
And it is probably, it's probably layered on top of something underneath it. And for almost every Christian thing, there's usually a Jewish thing underneath.
Yeah.
I mean, think about our Jewish Jesus. Like we can't forget the Jewish part of everything that we do, but we do a pretty good job in our Christian culture to not even take a double glance at Hanukkah and what that's all about. Do you even know what Hanukkah is all about?
I'm taking straight back to a guy in an armadillo costume talking about the Maccabees. Is that
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's going to be fighting and there's going to be blood.
Do you know what I'm referring
there's
to?
There's going to be
the Friends episode? Where
no, Sarah and I were just talking about that. We never watched Friends growing up, so you're going to have to
they
tell.
tell Ross to go out and get a costume to tell the story of Hanukkah, and all he can find, somebody's already rented the Santa Claus costume. So he shows up dressed like an armadillo and starts talking about the Maccabees, and then later on, one of the other friends walks in a Santa Claus costume. It's stupid, and I brought it in at the wrong moment. It's only funny if you love Friends, but
there are plenty of people, I'm sure, now that totally are getting what you're saying. It was literally on today before Four Christmases was about to come on TV.
Yeah.
Familiar with that one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So a favorite of ours. And so we were watching some Friends and we're like, hey, you know what? We've never watched Friends growing up. So it connects. You made it connect. Now, there is this idea. Maybe I just pause here just for a second, come all the way back to that's where I wanted to go. Like there's the spirit of Christmas. We say that a lot, right?
Yeah.
And then there's just the absolute capitalism of Christmas, what I would call the mess of Christmas. When I walked in today, I had something from AT&T about saving money by spending money. One of the first things I said to you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, that's an idea that you can like process a little bit, but like, gosh, like I want to stop having to make those decisions.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. It's not the world that I live in. It's not the society that I live in.
Yeah.
It's not the generation that I live in. And we are a consumer driven society, 1000%. And Christmas, when it creeps on us, I mean, like that is a literal thing I teach in my history class about the Christmas creep, about how for every generation, because this goes all the way back to the baby boomers, right after World War II, of, when commercialism is hitting, not only now through the radio, but now through TV, hey, we now have more stuff. All these assembly lines that were making planes and bombers and tanks, they're now back to creating consumer products, right? And so like buy, spend, words like need, better, right? And American society buys into it, and we get deeper and deeper and deeper. Like the credit card of the 80s is not an original thing. I mean, credit goes all the way back into the 20s. I mean, like as soon as the assembly line is created by Henry Ford and other people like, genius, we can start doing our products on that. And let's make sure we give the consumer credit in order to do that. Americans have been getting in trouble with debt since those days. We're 100 years into that. And I won't camp out here for too long because I want to have more fun than anything, but like a critique of just my own personal life of like, it's easy to spend more money when you're saving money, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, but the spirit of Christmas, the spirit of Santa, Jesus Christ. I mean, and I don't say that as an expression of of just bringing up the spirit of Christmas and we're missing it, but like literally bringing up the birth of Jesus Christ. And I don't know, Matt, I'm fighting where I want to land this thing, or I'm not even about to land. I'm about to camp.
Yeah.
Let me go back to the spirit of the law, the letter of the law. Can we go into the deep end here just for a second?
Yeah.
Let's talk literal truths. The inevitability of death. Is that a literal truth? That's something that we can deny somehow?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. The complexity of relationships. Is that a literal truth? Literally, is it true that relationships are complex?
Yeah, I think that's...
Is good and evil really literally a thing? Or is that just made up in storytelling?
That one's not so easy to answer.
Yeah, give me a thought.
Well, my thought, it'll just be a thought. It won't be an answer. It'll be, I'm that guy. I want to believe that, yes, there's good, there's evil. But when I bring it down to, flesh and bone, I think there's a lot of things we would call evil that if we could, put ourselves in someone else's shoes, we may see them as just a misunderstanding or a misguided adventure or,
What if I just bumped what you just said back up into the complexity of relationships? Can good and evil bump up to, we can have that good and evil conversation, good or evil conversation in the, man, if humans are interacting with each other, it's always going to be complex. Is that literally a truth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Love and loss. Does loss always come with love?
I don't know. Does loss always come with love? It might. I mean, if I need a timeline, but, because there's that inevitability of death thing that we just mentioned.
And that would be the loss of a loved one.
That would be the loss of a loved
one. Yeah, that's the easiest way to get there.
Easiest way, yeah.
Yeah. You believe that there is a threshold between childhood and adulthood? And that, do you believe that at least what we grew up in, you and I know each other well enough, there's so many cultures throughout the world that literally have a initiation into adulthood. You feel like you were initiated into adulthood, or you just had to kind of figure it out?
I think I just had to figure it out.
So when we talked about raising a modern day knight as a parent, you were trying to at least have an attempt at being more intentional of getting your boy through that threshold.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. I was I was a boy in a burning building just trying to throw some water on some things. Like I need something. I need help. And I've mentioned before, that's one of the ways that I found it. And that's, a lack of initiation. I don't want to go back into the whole story. I married young, this and that, but I did. Yeah, sometimes I still feel like I'm in that threshold between. You ever feel that way? Am I the only person?
No. I know it wasn't an age for me, and I know I wasn't initiated. I know there was no clear markers for me. I know well into my 40s, I'm still guessing of like, am I a man?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm still asking that question.
Sure.
Because not having a full understanding. Now, from the very beginning, for my own sake and the sake of my boys becoming men, we talked really early about being a man was your ability to take care of yourself and your willingness to take care of other people. And in that, I mean, you have to cross some sort of threshold, right? To know that you can take care of yourself. Take some practice. Yeah. So let mom and dad practice with you. Whether that's going all the way back to conversations you and I have had of you shake hands with people. It's a real handshake. You give eye contact. You communicate. To you begin to advocate for yourself. You stand up for yourself. To one day you start to advocate for other people. You stand up for other people. You speak up. You speak out. You do these things for yourself because it's necessary, and you do it for other people because they can't do it for themselves yet. And I don't question that anymore, because I really have come to some terms with some things that I cannot change, which I think is part of adulthood. And in storytelling elements, one of the things that's pretty universal throughout cultures is the loss of innocence. right? And once you have lost innocence, I mean, it's almost like you're now thrust into adulthood. And so sometimes when you're thrust from innocence, I mean, that's not an age, right?
Yeah.
Because when some certain things happen to you as a 7, 8, 9-year-old, you may have lost innocence, but you don't have the awareness yet that you have lost something precious.
Yeah.
But it's later in life where you begin to realize, unless you have repressed it, therefore it's still not an age. But you get to some possible stage of life or stage of healing, and you begin to realize, yeah, wow, I lost that at such a tender age, and then had to navigate without that thing. And so when we talk about like things that are inevitable, you know, this is like the literal circumstances that we have to figure out along the way in our relationships with ourselves, with our loved ones, and for all the other people that come across our path. So there's something else about storytelling. You know, whether we're going to talk about Joseph Campbell, or we're going to talk about Jesus, or we're going to talk about one of my favorite comedians, Pete Holmes, where he's picked up along the way. And, you know, he even says it. I mean, somehow he plants it in his comedy shows, but he'll start talking about metaphor. And he'll talk about how metaphor is 100% real, 100% true, and sometimes real. Yeah, that's what he says. Metaphor. It's 100% true and sometimes real. Now go with me on this. A metaphor. I mean, any metaphors just off the top of your head without having to think about it? What is a metaphor?
It's almost like I use something to represent something else. Is that what you're referring to?
Sure. So like if you use like or as, that's a simile.
Okay.
Kind of the same effect, but seemingly more layered. Life is a journey. I mean, is life really a journey? Life is a chess match. Life really a chess match? Well, I mean, if you play chess, you have this great understanding of how choices and consequences and like, you know, your ability to not only see what this person across the table is about to do, but what are you going to do in response to that? But you have to keep thinking, if you're going to be any good at chess, about, well, what would they do to what I do to what they did first?
Yeah.
And like the greatest, you know, chess champions, I mean, they're seeing 12, 16, 20 moves ahead of what's actually being done right this very second.
Yeah.
Life, people maybe who have figured out some lives don't just see the moment, they see beyond, but can stay in the moment. Life is a chess match. The mind. There's all kinds of metaphors for the mind. I think I've asked you before, did y'all ever garden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you say y'all, I would go straight to like my granddad.
Sure.
Yeah. Every year.
You ever till at all? Yeah. We may have gone here once before.
Sure.
Right? That whole process of just like, yeah, I know we have. I know we've had this conversation.
Yeah. It's not been that long ago I told you about my granddad pointing out some new ground for me.
That's right. That's right.
He said, if it'll grow poke salad, it'll grow anything. So we cleared it off. And put like, God, I forget how many tomato plants we put out there.
Yeah.
I don't even like tomatoes. And
I think I mentioned going to Jackie Evans and getting mushroom compost.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just smelling so bad and being so good for the garden.
Yeah.
You know, just this whole process of like, you know, the mind is a garden. You know, you have to till some stuff up. There's some stuff that just, man, you wouldn't think was necessary for these thoughts, these ideas, these ambitions, these compassions, these visions to grow. But yet, what about the heart? The heart can be a heart of stone or a heart of gold. How's that possible?
Yeah. Heart of stone, meaning it's calloused over time and there's not a lot penetrating those emotions. It is what it is. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I mean, think about this.
Or meaning that it's cold and hard and ugly.
You ever given yourself a life of service? And there are certain people that just appreciate almost everything you do and would claim in public, unashamedly, you have a heart of gold. And that there would be people that cross your same path in that life of service who would describe you as someone who just has a heart of stone.
Story of my life.
And I mean, but isn't that
Story of my
for
life.
everyone that has
Yeah.
ever taken the risk of being in a life of service?
Yeah.
But that metaphor, I mean, it works for this person and it works for that person to describe us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, metaphor being, remember, it's true, sometimes real. Jesus was most known for, and he did it on purpose because he explained to his disciples that he did it on purpose. How did he teach? Through what? How did Jesus teach?
Through parables.
Through parables. What's a parable?
Is it an expanded metaphor? It's just it's an entire story. It's like Aesop's fables. He's going to tell a story. For example, he may talk about gardening and he's teaching you about the mind the whole time. That's about the best thing I can put around in
that's
this
good.
context.
Because the metaphor simile goes from a phrase, and now you have like an allegory or a parable. And now we go through storytelling. And the parable is really the simplest way you can tell a story but have some sort of meaning in it. The allegory is usually very layered and usually longer, but it's still performing the same task. And Jesus, like, off the top of your head, can you give me a parable that he told?
Yeah. What do you call the one he was talking about? Throwing seeds onto certain different types of grounds.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it would land on, what was it he said? Like on rocky ground? Is that one of them? One of them would land amongst weeds and thorns. And yeah, that's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, some of those seeds will be plucked up by the birds, and some of it will actually hit good soil.
Yeah, that's right.
If you're talking to a bunch of folks who plant seeds to survive, I mean, you've already drawn them in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's one about a prodigal son. Remember about that one?
The prodigal son?
Yeah.
There were two sons and my imagination would always go to a pretty wealthy family with a father there, and one of the sons asked for his hey, give me what am I looking for? What's the word I'm looking for?
His inheritance.
Give me my inheritance. And he goes out and,
which, remember, is something that is given when someone dies. So to ask of it when someone is still alive, not cool.
He goes away and probably leads a life that his father wouldn't have approved of, and ends up broke and hungry and eating with the swine, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes.
Which, if we're talking about a Jewish son who leaves and now he's ended up in that place with that animal, the storyteller is not doing any of this on accident. And let's be reminded, the storyteller right now is Jesus himself.
Yeah. And the climax of the story is the boy finally decides, I'm going to go home and beg my father just to be one of his servants. And just looking for a place. And but the grace of it all is that his father had watched for him, and when he saw him coming, he goes out and puts a robe on him and places a ring on his hand and orders the fattest calf to be killed to feast and celebrate his coming home. Yeah, it's a beautiful story.
Yeah. And that older brother complains a little bit. Daddy says, hey, all you had to do was ask. You never asked.
Yeah.
Speaks to that relationship probably a little bit. Do you know what the word prodigal means? Because it never ends up in the story, but it always ends up as the heading in your Bible. What's that word mean?
I don't know.
Timothy Keller writes a great book called Prodigal God, and he goes into this word and starts talking about how it's extravagantly wasteful. Now, that son took his inheritance and extravagantly wasted it. But Timothy Keller goes to the place of, like, didn't the father as well? He knew he was wasting all of what he had accumulated in his lifetime on this son that wanted to leave. He did it again when he returned home. The willingness of a loving father to extravagantly waste. And I would pause right there and get into the life of Jesus. And go, how many times did he just waste time with folks? like in that most beautiful way. We've hinted at this before. And that if he tells a story, so like, was this a true story? Or is this a parable?
Prodigal son?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It's a parable because it follows 2 other parables right before it. Those 99 that get left behind because one has wandered away.
Yeah.
And that there's these 10 coins, but one have been lost. And that woman turns over everything. And then when she finds it, she then celebrates and invites people to come over. There's something significant about the one. And that's usually where a lot of sermons land. But there seems to be something. I mean, are we really going to waste that much time going to go find one sheep when I got 99 others in safety? Okay, wait a minute. You just lost a coin, but now you're going to spend to celebrate the finding. I mean, it's an absolute waste.
Yeah.
You already wasted all that on this son. Half of your fortune is now gone. You only have half of it left. He comes home and you still give this extravagant show. And so Timothy Keller, I mean, he's had my mind buzzing now for years after reading that book of just like that idea of like, I love receiving grace from other people. But if you've ever been a person that's been willing to give grace to someone else, it's a totally different experience. And it might even be a more powerful experience because if you do it once, you're willing to do it again and again and again and again and again. But if you're kind of the person that just not willing to take that risk, to give that kind of grace, then you miss out on some of that spirit within Christ. And just telling a story. But if you look at his life matches up with his story. So we would have to fast forward past Christmas and get to that crucifixion part, to that resurrection part. And I mean, there's another one. How about the Good Samaritan? What do you know about that one? Pretty common one. Even folks that aren't Bible-believing folks in Southeast Tennessee, I mean, like that Good Samaritan has now entered into our culture, right?
Yeah.
What do you remember about that one?
Let's see. Samaritan, it represents like not just someone good who helps out along the way, but this is someone, I forget the different cultures and the path that would have been taken by these people, but it's significant that they're even on that path in the first place. And they would have probably been despised on that path. And I may be speaking out of my tail here. I may be getting some things mixed up, but I mean, it's going to be such a story that, you know, we're still going to use it even when we don't understand it completely, like I'm doing right now. We're going to use it in common day languages to represent, you know, helping someone out when you really didn't have to. But I don't know, educate me on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's where that one lands. And like, I mean, just think about the truth that you just summed that up with. You help someone, you didn't have to.
Yeah.
You absolutely didn't have to. Now,
there's some significance in that story of like, this isn't just, the Good Samaritan doesn't represent just somebody who helped a neighbor, but this was, I'm pretty sure there was something in the region, a path that these people would have traveled, and they traveled it in a certain way to where they didn't even come in contact with each other. They hated each other. And somehow that, I don't know, again, I need to study up on that before I start speaking on it, but this was a person that helped somebody who they were raised to hate. You know what I mean?
I do, because this is something I'd love to retell, because when you start wrapping it up in its context, it becomes more powerful and more powerful and more. And it's not based on a true story, because if it was, I mean, that person would either be a hero or a villain, depending on who's listening to the story.
That's right, yeah.
Oof. So Jesus tells a parable, tells a story. He's going to want to try to get a meaning. He knows his audience. He says a guy was traveling from Jerusalem, which is really high up on a hill, down to Jericho. It's an 18-mile journey. The valley of the shadow of death. Ever heard that?
Sure.
It's a little Psalm 23, right?
Yeah.
You dig a little bit and you begin to find out like it's probably in this, if you're trafficking from Jerusalem to Jericho, there's bandits, there's criminals. I mean, you're going to have your head on a swivel because, I mean, like, you're going to get jumped. It's going to be on this path. And even though you just came to Jerusalem and you just went to the temple and you gave that sacrifice, and you have this spiritual high going on. But you got to travel back. I mean, like, you're back to reality really quickly. And so when Jesus tells this story of someone traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, the listeners of that day know how dangerous this is right off the bat. He just mentioned it. Valley of the shadow of death is there. Oh my word. Yeah, something bad's going to happen. Right? For us, I don't know what the equivalent is right off the top of my head, but if someone says something about that place at that time, we would understand that, oh my word.
Well, let's lift it up and bring it, because, and let me camp out here for a second, but keep right where you're at.
Yeah, sure.
Because a few minutes ago, you asked me, is there good and evil? And the first thoughts in my mind was, I've completed actions before to where that action, depending on who saw it, was the cowboy wearing the white hat. And some of them would have saw it as the 6-shooter riding in and the evil guy. But as we talk about this, I'm taken straight to like the Oregon Trail. Like, we're going to make this journey west. But there's these evil Indians, and they're shooting and killing our people. If the river don't get you, the Redskins will, and in that story there, it depends on what perspective you look at that. I mean, so I'm lifting that parable up and I'm placing it on American soil in different contexts. And it's just my mind doing this wild thing it does where I start to ramble. Anyways.
No, what if you're telling an Oregon Trail story to a Shoshone?
That's right.
Right? So if you're telling this story of going down, and you're telling it to a Jewish audience, and all of a sudden this guy gets beat. You might know a story of someone beyond Jesus's parable in your own real life. They got robbed doing that exact same thing. Because you got to come to Jerusalem as a good Jew.
Yeah.
And then you got to travel back. And you have to go through this place. And you better caravan, or else you don't want to be caught by yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the story as well. It's a lone traveler. Oh, that's trouble waiting to happen right there. And trouble does come, and no one is surprised. What they are surprised by is here comes a priest. And we just came from Jerusalem. Priest is the ones taking care of God's business within the temple. And my man goes to the other side. And then a Levite, which is subtle. But do you know the difference between a priest and a Levite? So the priest is actually performing the holy duties within the temple, and the Levite does all the other jobs, so the priest can do those jobs.
Yeah, that's right.
So Levite comes by who they live a life of service. They serve the priest so the priest can serve God, so that the whole people can still continue to do what they do, because we're pleasing God by continued animal sacrifice. Right? And so you'd think, oh, well, if the priest isn't going to, well, then the Levite would. And the Levite doesn't. Well, then a Samaritan shows up. And the whole crowd would just gasp, because this is going to go from bad to worse, because a Samaritan just showed up. Now, why? Mm-hmm. Why do Jews not like Samaritans?
I don't know.
So go back to the Jewish scriptures, and now go back to world history, and now go back to the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, right? And Israel and Judah are involved in all of this, and they're taking captives. But at one point, the northern kingdom of Israel, when the Assyrians came in, they began to intermarry. And when you intermarry, Jews now believed that these Samaritans that lived in this region beyond where Jesus grew up in Galilee, and you got to come down to Judah and where Jerusalem is, they lived in this kind of middle place, right? This was the Samaritans. Samaritans didn't go worship in Jerusalem. They set up their own place, but Abraham, yes. Isaac, yes. Jacob, yes. They still believed they were God's people. Jews did not, because of this history of intermarriage that now goes back hundreds of years, but still holding on to that grudge. So if you're looking at a Samaritan from a Jewish view, oh yeah, this is bad. This is going to go bad, because Samaritans hate Jews and Jews hate Samaritans, and this is an easy target. So whatever hasn't been stolen from this guy, if he's still alive, he's going to be killed.
Yeah.
And the Samaritan decides to take care of him. Go lay down 2 coins and say, hey, whatever he needs, give it to him. And when I'm back, if I have to pay you more, I'll pay you more. But this guy just went from not only just stopping, checking, but mending wounds and making sure that there will be a road to recovery and healing. Now, what really is salvation? Is it us going to the altar and praying? Or is it really this journey to healing and wholeness that gets us through the threshold, not to adulthood? I'm now going to step into eternity. Isn't that really what salvation is? It is not the moment of discovery, but it is that moment of, I am now going to take the rest of my days and allow myself, beyond myself, to be taken care of, be healed for one purpose, to take care of other people. And the Samaritan comes along and does that thing, this very holy picture of what God has done for the Israelites over and over and over again. A Samaritan now does in this made up story that is still 100% true, even if it's 0% made up. It's the power of the parable.
Yeah.
Right. And so when Jesus does this, I mean, he's got all kinds of people. And if you continue, especially through the book of John, he keeps getting himself in trouble and people just want to kill him. Like, oh, no exaggeration, like over and over. And somehow he keeps getting out of it, And I think this is one where, like, again, I said it earlier, geography is biography. If you understand this road from Jerusalem to Jericho, and you understand the cast of characters, there are these lawful things that have to be done. According to the letter of the law, this guy's dead, this priest can't touch him. But the spirit of the law says, I don't know if he's dead or not. Maybe I should check, even if I get unclean. How many times did Jesus do something that broke the letter of the law and he was called out for it?
Yeah, like eating or picking and eating on the Sabbath.
Sure.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. And so that whole spirit of the law, the letter of the law, like, you know, I appreciate safety and I appreciate law. And you have brought this whole, you know, whenever anything has ever gone down, especially the time of George Floyd and everything, let's go 6 months to a year before that, and everything since, you have brought such a perspective to my life of like, hey, hold on, man. No judgments. Keep listening, keep watching, keep thinking, keep open, because there's always more going on here.
Yeah.
You know, your Ken Burns in me without saying 1 + 1 = 3. But like, you allow me to step through really difficult things that are happening in my society and in my generation, and reminding me going, hey, there's definitely more going on here. I want to continue to do that for people in whatever context that I am sharing things, whether I'm sharing scripture or whether I'm sharing history or whether I'm sharing the moment with them, of just going, hey, let's see if we can be right here, right now, with each other, for each other, and understand what the power that is. Even if it is extravagantly wasteful, we will still give our time to these people in this place, because there's a spirit to all of this. There's a spirit that, whether it's Christmas time or whether it's Easter time or whether it's someone's birthday or whether it's a December 7th, where we'll pause on certain dates and go, hey, very intentionally, let us focus right here. But I think there is a whisper to all of our hearts that says, maybe pause every day. Like every day. I don't think it's too much to ask. Is it because I'm in a season of my life where I am more reflective, or am I in a season of my life where I am more intentional of slowing all of my judgments down and planting myself firmly in each day in an attempt in each moment to just stick and stay? Because the spirit of this season does say slow down. And, you know, one of my friends said something about he hated Christmas here recently. And in the end, he's like, nah, I'm just kidding. I love it. But you're loving it for all the right reasons, but you're still honest about all those other reasons.
Yeah. And
I just, you know, I wanted to take this because Santa, that's a real dude back in the day doing some really good work. You know, I wanted to capture this moment and just, I want to talk about Jesus. We didn't talk much about his birth. There is this idea that the spring equinox, 9 months after that, is the winter solstice. And that's why a lot of people are good with December 25th-ish being the birth of Jesus, because the feast of the Annunciation, that's Gabriel coming down to Mary and saying, hey, about to happen. And you're going to carry God's child. It's going to be Emmanuel, God with us.
Yeah.
And you fast forward that 9 months, and now you're in late December. And so I will celebrate. And I remember being a younger man and coming across for the very first time the possibility that, wait a minute, Jesus maybe didn't have a birthday on December 25th. And it rocked me for a minute.
Yeah.
But then back on stable ground, it's just like, well, hold on. There's a lot going on here. Is the Spirit within this season? Is the Spirit within my family? Is the Spirit within me? And will I share that Spirit with other people? Because there is the letter of the law. It does keep us safe. And it does bring structure. But there is the Spirit that I pray that we will let continue to, just as Jesus said, Spirit will teach us and it will remind us. And I think there's no two greater gifts than that, to learn something new and learn something fresh, or just be reminded that returning back to what is good and what is compassionate and what is full of grace is the greatest gifts that we can give to people, no matter what day of the calendar it is. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good bridge, Paul.
Yeah. Probably somewhere in there, people are going to listen in the middle. Like, what in the world's going on right now?
What is happening?
And I'm okay with that, because it's kind of the intent of what we've been doing, of just like, maybe this is sometimes because we've practiced enough, not only with each other, but with other people, but just letting people know that just let conversation happen.
Yeah.
Be with people. Be with that person. See where that conversation goes and be patient enough to see where it lands. I like where this landed.
I do too.
And even where it started, that was fun. And that messy middle, maybe that's inevitable too.
I don't want to mess up your story. I just want to add a thought that I was thinking of, and this has got something to do with your friend telling you he hated Christmas. Like what you just described, a time of reflection and slowing down and thinking about not only the life of Christ, but his teachings and what can be drawn from it. What are we, isn't there a magic in that? Isn't there, of all the things we try to create with the, oh my God, Black Friday shopping all the way through, the Christmas carols, which are all great. That's all fantastic. Those create, very like dopamine related responses to you that could be confused with joy and happiness and a Christmas spirit at times. But isn't there a magic that can happen if we just boil it down and make it a little simpler like you've described? Do we confuse those things sometimes?
I just love that you're using the word magic. Yeah, I love that word.
I do too.
I love the word magic. I
do too. And that's why I know it's crazy, the bridge between George Floyd and the magic of Christmas. But, that's why that I recommend for people, because, we always talk about the emotional response of people. And, I just finished watching a Who Killed John Benet Ramsey special that made me want to light torches, But I know enough to know now that, man, this is a very controlled story, and I'm being told in a very emotional way by her father how things work, and the humanness in me wants to respond. But if I cannot manufacture that magic or that emotion, and I can look at actually what happened and actually what it meant, then I can get to this whole different magic. And bridge right back to the Christmas spirit. If I help someone in need and someone shares it on Facebook and I get 1,000 likes, man, there's this dopamine response. Even to me, a guy who would say, I hate the idea of that. Even to me, there's this like dopamine response that can fill in for that magic or that emotion. But it's not the same as, being in my grandparents' house on Thanksgiving, watching children sing about their thankfulness and having to literally fist fight myself not to burst into bubbly tears. That's a different kind of magic. Yeah, that's, I just rambled again, but
no, I like it.
I'm with you on the real spirit of Christmas, the real magic of Christmas. Change the world.
And magic gives permission for the mystery to remain. And so I'm not as attracted anymore to give me all the facts. I'm more attracted to, hey, give me some facts because I'm a curious person.
Yeah.
But man, please don't leave out the miracle.
Yeah.
The reality, the love, what this really is anyway. Yeah, we're laying on the same spot, buddy.
Good, man. Well, I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. I bet you do the same, wouldn't you, Paul?
Merry Christmas.
Hope you hold on to your family, spend precious time with those, and help those out along the way as Jesus would do. Also would like to continue to show appreciation for you going through this 1 hour and 42 minutes of mind stew with us. I may need to break this into 2 parts, but man, thank you all for listening and continuing to share and like our conversations as we continue to try to be mindful and to connect with you. Feel free to comment, follow us on Spotify, do all of those crazy things. Again, thank you. And until next time. Man, that's downright mindful. You've been listening to Downright Mindful with your hosts, Matt Paris and Paul Salzville. Produced by Josh Morris. Intro and outro production by Derek Kinsey. You can find us wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. Thanks for listening.